Christmas Eve, I finally have time to come on air. So if you're one of the few, Merry Christmas on this Christmas Eve edition of Kruk and Kuip Extra Innings. As way earlier today, the Niners beat the Jaguars 44-33. Let me fix that for a second. Pardon the interruption there. Let's try again. And today the Niners beat the Jaguars 44-33. Of course, you can follow on Twitter at Kruk and Kuip Fan at twitter.com or on Facebook on the Kruk and Kuip page. Let's start with off-season roster moves for the week. Hyun-Soo Kim heads back to Korea, who had a strong first season in the Orioles, but he was a platoon bat, so he's decided to go back to Korea. Signs with the LG Twins in the KBO. And the LA Dodgers have very little trade interest in Matt Kemp. So they could be looking at a possibility of releasing Kemp. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kemp is DFA'd if they can't find a deal here before spring training. Martin Perez is to have surgery on his non-throwing elbow, and he incurred the injury over in Venezuela. But Perez was a 4.82 ERA in Texas. And they have decided to pick up his $6 million option for next season, but we'll see if he's able to recover from surgery in time for spring training. Rangers also re-sign Austin Biebens-Dirks and Eric Godel, and they will both receive minor league contracts with invitations to spring training. And these are more important because of the recent Perez injury for Texas. We'll see if Dirks can get out of being the swingman role next year. And Logan Morrison, still a free agent. The Oakland A's acquired Jake Bray from the Baltimore Orioles. And the A's send Jacob Brudman to Baltimore. Bray has not yet pitched above the single level. We shall see how the A's do with that acquisition, if that makes them any better. They also acquired Jonah Heim from the Tampa Bay Rays in a trade in the Joey Wendell trade of last year. So we'll see how that works out for the Oakland A's. Former Giant Tim Lincecum is planning to hold a showcase for MLB teams. It looks like he has bulked up this last offseason. So hopefully, and it says that Lincecum is throwing hard again, who's now going to be 34. But he will likely, if signed by any teams, it will likely be to either a minor league contract, and he will likely have to become a relief pitcher. We'll see if he can get himself back on a roster here this spring training. And the Oakland A's were busy signing another outfielder, Darian Blanco, signed with the Oakland A's from Cuba. But the A's are in the penalty box after blowing past last year's international pool. So they can't deal Blanco more than $300,000. And he will likely be and they also hope Dustin Fowler can hold a regular spot in the outfield next year. And one of the big signings this week, the Phillies signed Carlos Santana to let me see the deal. A $10 million signing bonus with so it'll be a 3-year contract for about $50 million with a $500,000 buyout on the option year. So this was a good signing by the Phillies to help them with their batting order. Indians release Leo Campos to pursue opportunities in Japan, as he will join the Nippon League next year. He probably would have been in AAA with earning the possibility of an MLB pen job, but he'd rather take the sure payday in the Nippon League, and I wish him a lot of luck in Japan. That's not an easy place to pitch. Zach Britton is to undergo surgery for a ruptured Achilles. And this is bad news for the Orioles, who are looking to either trade him, but now he's going to be back on the shelf for who knows how long with that Achilles, depending on if he's going to be having surgery or not. Marlins signed Jacob Turner And he was a former prospect acquired in the Anibal Sanchez trade a few years ago. And he will compete for either a rotation or bullpen spot in spring training. Braves acquire Preston Tucker from the Astros. Cash or player to be named later will go back in return. And to open that 40-man spot, Braves designate Luke Jackson for assignment. He slashed .250 last year in AAA. And the writing was on the wall for Jackson anyways. Nationals signed Tommy Malone. That's possibly for their vacant 5th spot in the starting rotation for Washington. He was part of the trade that went for the Gio Gonzalez trade for the A's. But he's bounced around between the majors and the minors. Last 2 seasons, he's pitched to a 6.5 ERA. But it looks like he's might be the best chance to earn the 5 spot unless the Nationals sign another pitcher before the season starts. The LA Dodgers signed Tom Kohler to a $2 million contract after he was non-tendered by the Blue Jays last season. And he could help fill the void in the bullpen as possibly the swingman role next year. Mets and Sandy Alderson agree to a new deal. The Mets general manager signs to an extension that is worth $2019. Extended 2019 and has John Rico in line to be the successor after that season. The San Diego Padres released Travis Wood, who they designated for assignment to clear a roster spot for Jordan Lyles. And that will mean that they're going to buy out the remaining $6 million of his contract. He had some success with the Cubs with a 3.51 ERA and then a 3.94 ERA last year. But a low payroll club could look to bring back Travis Wood. And the Milwaukee Brewers signed Jhoulys Chacin for a $15.5 million contract. It would be a 2-year, $15 million contract. Chacin having a really good year at the Padres. And this can help fill the void for the Brewers, who are likely going to be without Jimmy Nelson next year for part of the year after September shoulder surgery. And it helps with their other signing they made. But we'll see how Chacin does at hitter-friendly Miller Park. But Chacin is one of the two signings they made. I think Giovanni Gallardo was the other signing the Brewers made for reinforcements in the event of Jimmy Nelson's injury. So good signings by the Brewers. And also the Brewers designate Dylan Baker for assignment to make room for Gallardo and Chacin. So yeah, Giovanni Gallardo was the other signing this week for the Milwaukee Brewers. And the Seattle Mariners signed Juan Nicasio to a $17 million 2-year contract. And he's a guy who's going to probably help with the bullpen next year for the Mariners. That needs bullpen help. We go. Giovanni Gallardo's contract is worth don't have the specifics of his contract, but okay, it's a $2 million deal. And it only applies if he cracks the opening day roster. So this is a rehabilitation for project for the Brewers at this point. Braves and Danny Santana agree to a minor league deal of $1 million. And also former Padres play-by-play guy passed away this week, Dick Enberg, who was also a big-time announcer in the NFL back in his days with announcing with Merlin Olsen. So he was a good announcer. He will definitely be missed in the sports world. So rest in peace, Dick Enberg. Rangers signed Sean Tolleson, Paulo Espino, Brett Eibner, and Zeke Spruill to minor league contracts. The Nationals sign Matt Adams to a 1-year, $4 million contract. And he's definitely the platoon partner that they need since losing Adam Lind at the end of this last season. He doesn't hit well full-time, but he's definitely good in the platoon role for the Nationals. White Sox claim Jose Ruiz from the San Diego Padres in the trade for Freddie Galvis. The Dodgers claim Henry Owens from the Diamondbacks. Who's a pitcher who has control options and control issues. And he has a minor league option remaining, so he could maybe go back to Oklahoma City to fix on his mechanics. The Diamondbacks sign Yoshihisa Hirano to a $6 million contract. And he's been a good closer in Japan. So he's definitely going to be the guy coming in to help try to fill the void of Fernando Rodney, who signed with the Twins. And we also lost Jorge De La Rosa and J.J. Hoover this last offseason. And the Indians sign Yonder Alonso. It is a $9 million vesting option. Alonso signs a 3-year, $60 million, with something closer to a $20 million contract. That's okay, $16 million contract, 7 year, $7 million, $8 million for 2018 and 2019, with a $9 million vesting option for 2020, which will help fill the void of Carlos Santana. And now on to Giants news. The Giants re-sign Nick Hundley to a 1-year, $2 million deal. Then they also signed Alan Hansen to a 1-year minor league contract deal for the outfield. And they also signed Josh Rutledge to a minor league contract. He bounced around last year between Boston and Pawtucket, and he could be competing with Kelby Tomlinson for the second bench role. And then, of course, here we are with the big story all Giants fans have been talking about this week. The Giants acquired Evan Longoria. In exchange, the Rays will get Denard Span, Christian Arroyo, Stephen Woods, and Matt Kruk. And the Rays are to be sending between $10 and $15 million of cash considerations. I think he will be good defensively. The age and power kind of worry me a little bit. Last year, he only hit 20 home runs. And the big question is going to be, will his power translate to AT&T Park? if he doesn't turn it around next year, they could certainly be cleaning house. I'd say this trade was mainly a push. And it looks like the Giants might be nearing signing Jay Bruce, which means Bruce will probably play at right field, then have Dugar play center field. Or we'll see if they make another trade. They have about $18 million. But getting rid of Span and more $18 million worth of bad contracts. Now, if he's able to move Pence's contract, that's where it could get really interesting, and it could be a really good offseason. But I do think I certainly don't think Longoria is definitely going to be a really good defensive upgrade in the hot corner. So on to today's Niners game. This was a really good win by the Niners today. And this was the first time the Niners scored on an opening drive this year, as they drive down the field on the opening drive, and Jimmy Garoppolo runs it in for a touchdown. Then later on in the first quarter, Robbie Gould makes it 10-0 with a field goal. Then in the second quarter, Dante Johnson gets a pick six off of Blake Bortles. Unfortunately, the extra point was blocked, and Colvin ran it back the other way for 2 points the other way. Then Jacksonville got going as Leonard Fournette got a touchdown the other way to make it 16-8, 16-9. Then Jake Strong Then Jalen Strong comes in and catches the next touchdown as they tie up the game in the second quarter. Then Josh Lambo adds a field goal to take the lead at 22-19. Then third quarter, George Kittle gets a 8-yard pass from Jimmy Garoppolo as the Niners recapture the lead. Then on the following drive, Trent Taylor gets a touchdown pass from Jimmy Garoppolo. To make it 30 points. Carlos Hyde runs it in to make it 37 points. Then after that, in garbage time, TJ Yeldon gets a touchdown to make the game a little more interesting at 37-26. Then James O'Shaughnessy gets a touchdown to make it 37-33. And then Matt Breida ices the game with a 30-yard touchdown run to make it 44-33. I mean, Bortles The critics say, oh, Bortles did terrible today. Bortles wasn't too bad. 32 for 50, 382 passing yards. That was the good. The bad was the 3 interceptions. And the Niners were able to shut down Leonard Fournette. That is great. And Matt Breida had more running yards today than Carlos Hyde. And Carlos Hyde has interest in re-signing with the Niners next year. And the stadium actually looked full today. So really good attendance by the Niners today. Really good turnout. And it was loud in there. So I think it's the fullest I've seen at Levi's in a very long time. So really good for the home finale. Next week they go and play an LA team that could be resting their starters. So this could be a good opportunity to finish 6-10. I don't think Jared Goff and Todd Gurley's going to be playing the majority of the game. I think it's going to be Sean Mannion and the B squad in there. So could be a good opportunity to finish 6-10. And next week I am going to be out of town, but I am going to try to do a live show out on the Embarcadero. So it'd be kind of cool to do a live show out on the Embarcadero as I'm going to ring in 2018 in beautiful San Francisco. So it'd be kind of fun to do a New Year's Eve show out on the Embarcadero, maybe out in front of AT&T Park. Who knows? But I'm really looking forward to having some fun out on the Embarcadero next week. All right, let's wrap around with other scores in the NFL for this week. The Ravens beat the Colts 23-16. Minnesota blanks Green Bay 16-0. Carolina beats Tampa Bay 22-19. And after that game, Carolina clinches a playoff spot and can win the NFC South next week with a win and a Saints loss. Chicago beats Cleveland 20-3 as Cleveland falls to 0-15. Good news, it might be enough to spare John Fox a firing. Whereas for Cleveland, I think they're going to go 0-16, and I think Hugh Jackson's gone. Cincinnati beats Detroit 26-17. Detroit was eliminated from playoff contention. The Chiefs beat the Dolphins 29-13. New England beats Buffalo 37-16. New Orleans beats Atlanta 23-13. And New Orleans clinched a playoff spot and can win the NFC South with a win next week. The LA Chargers beat the New York Jets 14-7 and can clinch a playoff berth next week with a win and a Titans loss. And I think some sort of weird combination of wins between Buffalo and whatnot, or losses between Buffalo and whatnot. Washington beats Denver 27-11. The LA Rams beat Tennessee 27-23. And this year, the LA Rams are now the winners of the NFC West. Congratulations to them. Arizona blanks New York Giants 23-0. And Seattle beats Dallas 21-12. And the Cowshits are eliminated from playoff contention. All right, and let's take a look at the standings as we head into the final week as we get ready for week 17 of the NFL next week. New England wins the East. Buffalo is still alive, but needs to win, get a lot of help. Pittsburgh can clinch a bye with a win tomorrow. Baltimore wins next week and they're in. I'm going to fix that a little bit. But Tennessee win and they're in, surprisingly still. And Kansas City also clinched the AFC West today with their win over Miami. And Dallas was Robinated today. Detroit was eliminated. New Orleans and Carolina clinched. Atlanta, they win next week. They're in, and that's likely going to be the NBC Sunday night game next week. And the Rams are in. And Seattle, they're still alive, but they need a win and an Atlanta loss to clinch. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Merry Christmas. And I will be back next week before we ring in 2018. Peace, love, peace, love, and soul. Good night.